Welcome back into the Pig Trail Show and the Hogs Soup Report with Kevin McPherson. I'm Jacob Morris. Kevin, some of the luster, the shine of the preseason expectations wore off in major fashion. Arkansas falls 78-72 to UNC Greensboro. People expected it to be a tough matchup coming in, but the Spartans came in and really handled the Razorbacks, I think, better than anybody could have expected.
Well, you just said it. I don't think it's just a tough matchup. I think it's a bad matchup. And UNCG handled Arkansas. I mean, there were times where Arkansas looked like it had a chance to stay in the game, but they were never a front runner on their home court. And you don't expect that against a lot of mid majors, period, especially at home. Eric Musselman was perfect in non conference play, most of those against mid or low major Division One schools. 36-0, you can add a one to that, 36-1 on the wrong side of the hyphen. But it was a matchup last year. Arkansas trailed by 5 at halftime, 26-21, low scoring grind game. Arkansas finds a way, 65-58 to win. But if you look at the shooting percentages last year on offense, 33% overall, nearly 17% from three. It was ugly for Arkansas last year. Trevor Brazile went down in that game early and was lost for the season. Arkansas was lucky and fortunate to win that game. Fortune was not on Arkansas' side. This was a Greensboro team that, although it replaced, I think, 4 starters, the main guy, Keyshawn Langley, was a guy that we knew was one of their more prolific scorers because he just put 26 on Vanderbilt in the midweek game. McHale on their front line, the 6'8" forward, McHale Brown-Jones, 24 points against Vandy. He got in early foul trouble, but had a big second half. Langley had a big scoring first half. But they have more than that. And they had a lot of guys that played in this game last year. Even though Arkansas's got some returnees in its own right, Brazile didn't play much in this game. It was Devo Davis a year ago at 10 points, 10 rebounds. Makai Mitchell, a big double-double last year. He had one against Old Dominion, and he probably needed another one on Friday night because he had one against Greensboro, 13, 14, and 4 blocks last year against the Spartans. This year, off the bench, 8 minutes, 4 fouls, played 8 minutes, 1 field goal. He made it. No rebounds. This was not, I mean, Brazile did play in this game, and he had his best rebounding game, 9 rebounds, season high. Arkansas really need to get better there. He did that part of it, but he hasn't given Arkansas a lot of offense this year. They've had no problems on that side of it. But I do think moving forward, they may try to play more through him on offense. Arkansas hasn't had as much offensive problems so far this year as they've had on the defense end. Some of those things reared their ugly head in the second half against Old Dominion, and that snowball just got bigger against Greensboro. Arkansas really didn't get stops enough in that game, whether it was 3-point shooting inside the arc. But once again, Arkansas shoots a little better overall than it did a year ago, 10 percentage points better, 43%. A lot of that was in the second half getting downhill on dribble drives. Now, Arkansas's got a lot of talented offensive guys. When you start looking at that backcourt, especially, L. Ellis, Tremont Mark, Caleb Battle, Devo Davis, those guys can get into mid-range, get in runners, and get into the rim. But the three-point shooting, as good as Arkansas's been, finally, after being in a desert drought for 2 previous seasons, they felt that drought again. 4 of 23 from 3. You can look at a lot of things. This was just an off night for a team that was ranked in the top 35 in efficiency at over 40% per game, making over 9 per game. Arkansas, 4 of 23. 2 of those makes were in the final minute 7 when the game was over. They started 1 of 17. They didn't have more than 1 3-point field goal until there was about 2.5 minutes left in the game. So 3 of them came in the last 2.5 minutes, 2 in the last minute. This was a game where I thought the ball movement didn't help Arkansas a lot. Musselman said post-game when I asked him, I thought Arkansas was stale a lot on offense. Defense was bad enough. And he said, well, we got our 200 passes with something they track. That is where they want to go. That's their marker. But I didn't think the ball had a ton of energy for easy looks. Nothing came easy. Arkansas only had 7 assists on 24 made field goals. And Greensboro had 15, more than double up Arkansas there. I thought Greensboro got a lot of easy looks off their playmaking, just guys open. So it wasn't just guys not being able to stop dribble drives or defend the 3 line. But even if you did wall a guy off or force him not to take a shot and didn't give him a clean look, your rotations weren't good because the next pass, a lot of wide open, easy looks, whether it was inside or out. Greensboro, 48% overall from the field, 37.5% from 3. They're a prolific 3-point shooting team. That's about their efficiency. Arkansas didn't stop that. 9 of 24 from there. The difference last year, though, really, Jacob, when I look at it. As bad as Arkansas, as poorly as they played offensively last year, their defense was pretty good in that game, but they had a huge free throw discrepancy, plus 22 in attempts at the line. They took 33 free throws last year in this game versus 11 for Greensboro. And Arkansas was a poor free throw shooting team a year ago. Not in that game. They made like 70, high 70%. They had to have it. Everything else was bad. They were lucky to win it. This year, Arkansas is better at the free throw line. They haven't shown it in a couple of games, but we knew they would, percentage wise, they should be. 20 of 25, you'll take that, 80%. Most of that in the second half. Arkansas's offense, I thought, was stagnant. Too many turnovers first half, poor shots, early long threes they didn't need to take. Second half, they did better driving. They still weren't, not a lot of energy on the ball movement, like I said, because there wasn't a lot of assists, but their talented one-on-one scores took over and they got to the line. 20 of 25, 80%. But the disparity wasn't there. The margin wasn't there. Greensboro ends up 17 of 23. A little bit of that was at the end of the game when you're having to foul to stop the clock, but not a lot. There wasn't enough cushion there like there was a year ago. It wasn't just last year, by the way, where Arkansas was plus 22 at the free throw attempts in that game. So far this year, in a small sample size, the margin on average, Arkansas was taking 32 free throws per game coming in. Greensboro only 10 free throws per game. So it was a plus 22 there in the average this year. So Arkansas, by the numbers, they needed that, and they didn't get it. So I'm kind of going around the globe here, talking about this game is a post-mortem. It wasn't a good matchup, A. B, there's upsets all the time, high majors losing to mid-majors. Ranked high major teams this time of year getting knocked off by these mid-majors. There were 5 just this past week in week 2 of college basketball. There were some in the previous week. It's not just Arkansas. It's not making excuses, but it's also not a death knell. This isn't college football where a bad loss or a couple or two or three bad Saturdays changes everything for your season. This is college basketball, and you can go through some of this. I mean, Arkansas lost to Hofstra in North Little Rock 2 years ago. That was an Elite Eight team. That was one of 5 losses in a 6-game stretch for Arkansas. The year before that, they started 2-4 in SEC play, marched on to an SEC title, ended up second in the SEC regular season. Last year's team finished 8-10, 10th place in the SEC, had a lot of bad stretches. Sweet 16 team. Eric Musselman's got the pieces. He's going to figure a lot of this out. It doesn't get any easier coming up. These next 6 games, including the 3 in Battle for Atlantis this coming week, are not going to be easy. You might take some more losses in here. I think Arkansas is going to win some games. I think they got a chance to win this event. But it was not a good matchup against mid-major North Carolina Greensboro. Let's give that team credit. The duo of Langley, McHale, Brown-Jones, but other guys in support. You could tell this is a team that understands what's expected in their system. They had veteran guys coming back, even though they were replacing a lot of starters, guys that played in this game last year. They were the better team at both ends. Give them credit.
I think that's the best way to sum it up. Best team on both sides of the ball, because that was the first thing that stood out to me. Sitting down on the floor for the first half was Langley comes in, he scores 18 points in the first half alone, and this team looked like they expected to win the game. They looked like they expected to compete on that floor, partially because they competed last year in the game, right? But I think the perimeter defensive struggles were surprising, to say the least, and Coach Musselman had talked about having to get better in that regard, but UNCG seemingly got whatever it wanted, and it seemed difficult shot selection-wise for Arkansas all game long. But regardless, like you said, the season not over. Big opportunity this week in the Battle for Atlantis. But before we get to that, I know you had an opportunity to see some in-state recruiting guys this weekend. What did you see from them, and what does Arkansas perhaps to look forward to with that group?
Yeah, well, I think we say it all the time. We think class of 2024 is complete for the high school part of it, 2 signees. So I'm looking at guys in state. Arkansas has done great with in-state guys through the arc of a storied program. It's been true for Eric Musselman, and we will see maybe some more of that. But class of 2025, Isaiah Seeley, got to see him play in Central Arkansas last night. His team lost, but he had a game high matching 19 points. 6'6". I love his length. He plays the 1. He can play off the ball 2 or the 3. But I love his length, his skill set, his floor IQ. I mean, he can knock down threes. He's got little spin cycle moves getting to the basket, little runners and floaters. He can easily finish above the rim. And he's one of those guys that plays with a lot of confidence. He had a couple of blocked shots late in the game. They were matching up against the Little Rock Christian Academy's team with class of 2026, a loaded team with multiple Division I guys, led by ESPN National Top 25 2020. But from the 26 class, Jashawn J.J. Andrews, another 6'6" guard wing, not as much of a primary handler type, but more of a slasher, athletic, physical. He already looks like a college body going into his sophomore season of high school. But both of those guys had 19 points. Andrews in a 12-point win gets the MVP award. He also had 9 rebounds and a couple of steals. You know, Sealy checked every box. I mean, he wasn't just scoring. He did a lot of things for, I think, Springdale was a little undermanned in that game. And look, it was a Springdale team a year ago that Sealy helped get to the 6A state title game where they lost to Jonesboro. But one of their key players transferred out. So that was their first game. They're figuring things out. But I thought both Sealy and Andrews, you understand why Arkansas has extended offers to both. Sealy, again, in 2025, 6'6", national top 54 star. Jashawn J.J. Andrews, 6'6", freshman, sophomore now, class of 2026. ESPN has him ranked the number 25 player in the country, knocking on that 5-star status. I also got to see Jacob Lanier, 6'6" wing at a lead guard. Really, I'll call him a combo because he can play off the ball as a 2. He could play the wing, but he's playing mostly on the ball at Maumelle. But very diverse and versatile as a guy on the perimeter for you offensively. Really nice 3-point shot. But he had 20 points in Maumelle's loss to Farmington yesterday. Did some really good things. I got to see all 3 of these guys. They all have Hog offers. They're all in some way, shape, or form ranked in a national recruiting services top 50 or 30. But Lanier and Sealy have both. We reported weeks ago that Lanier would be going to that Arkansas Duke game on later this month, November 29th, a Wednesday game in the ACC SEC Challenge. But Sealy confirmed with me. I put out my video interview with him last night, and he confirmed in that interview that he plans to be there. So we're breaking that news via that interview, but also here today. And then Jashawn Andrews told me that he'd like to go to that game. He's already been on campus for one unofficial visit. He told me he wants to set up another visit to Arkansas. He says he wasn't sure yet where their schedule, how things would play out for him to attend that game. It's a Wednesday night game, and so, but he'd like to go, and so he's working on that. The other guy that I've previously confirmed, Terrian Burgess from class of 2025 national, another top 35 guy in this in-state in Benton, 6'9" combo forward. Just last week had a 30-10 rebound double-double, 30-point, 10 rebound double-double. But he's also confirmed that he'll be at that Arkansas Duke game. So we've got 3 in-state guys, all 3 of the top players in the country in the 2025-2026 class. So it's always important to understand, even in November when your season's going on, and even though you've wrapped up your early signing period and probably done in the high school ranks for this class, you've got to keep that thing going and keep that recruiting momentum going with these younger classes, because within the next year, you're trying to firm up some of these 2025 guys. And I think Arkansas is in great shape with both Burgess and Sealy in 2025. And I think they're in good spots with both Lanier and Andrews in 2026. And there's other guys in state that either have Arkansas offers in both classes, because both classes are pretty deep. 2026 is really deep with D1 talent. 25's got its share at the top, high major guys. In-state's looking good for Arkansas prospects moving forward, and certainly putting eyes on these guys and seeing them play. I understand why they're in the mix, not only with the Hogs, but other high major schools, because all of these guys have multiple high major offers.
Yeah, in-state talent is deep, and there's a whole lot to look forward to there in terms of Arkansas recruiting and Arkansas recruiting potential there. And speaking of that Duke game, I think that's about as good of a way to show recruits the potential environment that Arkansas can offer and all that surrounds a big game here. Tickets going for $350 plus just to get in the building for that matchup. That should be a whole lot of fun. But hey, before we get to that Duke game, you said it a little bit earlier, a whole lot to deal with this week in the Bahamas. Battle for Atlantis coming up for Arkansas. A deep field, and it's something that could go one of two ways, right? Like we talked about after the UNCG loss, you could say they could pick up a couple more losses here, or this could be a get right week, and all of a sudden you forget all about the loss to the Spartans.
Yeah, that was a quad 3 loss, and I don't think Hog fans are going to forget it. But you're right; you can move past it.
Yeah,
and the best way to do that is to start winning. And this is an opportunity; it's a showcase event. I mean, these are ESPN's televising these games. You're now getting off live stream and playing at home, and you're playing in a tournament format for whatever reason. I mean, last year Anthony Black had an outstanding Maui Invitational and really not only put Arkansas, had a great run, 2-1, won the 3rd place game against a ranked San Diego State team, eventual national runner-up, right?
Hmm.
Arkansas had a good run out there. So things can start feeling really good for you if you get on a roll. I'm glad you brought that up because I think the pieces are still there for Arkansas to go and win an event like that. I'm not going to predict it right now. And certainly you want to win a couple of games if you're going to have to take another loss here next week. But you might go 1-2 in the worst case, and you don't want to think it. I don't see this as what's going to happen, but it's a possibility. The offer. I think Arkansas's definitely got to figure some things out defensively. They're not going to just snap a finger overnight and be better because they're in the Bahamas, but it might be just a few tweaks and adjustments. Musselman referenced that in the postgame, and so it's going to be interesting to see how they open up even against Stanford. Stanford's got some guys that can knock it down from three. Stojakovic, the highly rated freshman, a guy I got to see play on the grassroots circuit 5 or 6 times in his career. This kid's for real now, and he's already had some good games for the Cardinal. Obviously, they've got other players. Still a high major school, Pac-12, whatever that is anymore, but they're still around right now. And Stanford's going to be, the first challenge. So Arkansas needs to definitely, to me, Eric Musselman's best teams have always figured it out on defense first. I don't think this team really has had many problems offensively except the 3-point shooting in this one game. There was some other stuff I mentioned. I didn't think the ball movement was great. They made their 200 passes, but what easy looks did it get them? It didn't. I think that's got to get better over here. I think the offense needs to get better from where it was against Greensboro. That way, obviously, you want the threes to be figured out. But I think defensively, if that's something you can't get improvement in inside and out in some kind of significant way, at least one of them significantly, and the other one a little better maybe. But you can't have both of them failing like they did second half against Old Dominion. And for most of the game, really most of that game, where North Carolina Greensboro was picking and choosing, I don't think you can win a lot over in this event if it's that bad on defense moving forward in these next few days, Jacob.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it starts with Stanford on Wednesday, but a really deep field, Villanova, North Carolina, the likes of some really impressive teams that Arkansas could potentially match up against. And even with the format of these tournaments, you lose a game, maybe somebody else gets upset, and you've got a harder game in the losers bracket than you do potentially winning. So that should be interesting. But let's finish up with some Pro Hogs. You already brought forth the Anthony Black bobblehead there. I thought we were saving that for the Pro Hogs, but I love it. Tell us about some of the Pro Hogs and how they're doing.
AB. Well, let's start with AB.
Yeah.
Let's start with AB, who has been a starter. The Magic have had some issues with injuries in the backcourt, veteran guys, and he got in the rotation because of that. And then he eventually got in the starting lineup, and they've kind of left him there a little bit. Now, some nights he plays 27, 30 minutes. A couple of times he started in his minutes. The other night he started and only played 11. So they got some guys, they're still a very young team. When I say veteran, it's relative to him. He's a 19-year-old. Right? Straight out of high school to college to the NBA. Boom, boom, boom. But Anthony Black's defense is what stood out to me. He's a guy that, he's not at Arkansas. He was a primary handler. He gets some of that in spot duty. They play him off the ball a lot, sort of as a slasher, rim runner, dunker spot guy. And it's not really as much about his offense right now, but what he can bring to you defensively. And then as a secondary facilitator when the ball is in his hands, whether he's on the primary or not. And so he's done some really good things to help Orlando out. I think they're 7-5. This is an up and coming team, a lot of youth, one of the youngest teams in the NBA. But I like Anthony Black's opportunities there. But really, the big news this past week was Isaiah Joe going 7 for 7 for Oklahoma City against Golden State on Golden State's home court. Steph Curry was out, happened to watch it from the bench. He covered his eyes. Isaiah Joe was 5 of 5 from 3, and the ball skip was passed to Isaiah. And as soon as Zay caught it, Steph didn't wait to see what he did. He covered up, ball fake, an NBA All-Star Andrew Wiggins came flying by, sidestep, then a step, one dribble sidestep, step back. And it was 6 of 6 at that point. And Curry's hands were still over his face, Zach. He couldn't bear to look. But he had to hear it because the fans moaned.
Yeah.
And the guy that does the PA had to say Isaiah Joe. And he had to hear that. So he didn't see it, but he felt it. All right, 7 of 7. That was an Oklahoma City Thunder club record for, going perfect from 3 in a game without a miss. So 23 points in that game. He did miss a free throw. So a perfection all across the board eluded him. But a box score plus 21 and a win. And then it was like a baseball series. on the road, you travel, you play three, whatever. They only played two, but Thursday, Friday at Golden State, or excuse me, Thursday, Saturday. So yesterday, Joe had 10 points, 2 of 4 from three, so 9 of 11 in the two games. But 10 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, and a game high box score plus 17. So a combined box plus 38 and a 2-0 run. He had a couple of buzzer beaters in this game to end quarters. And then Chet Holmgren hit the buzzer beater to beat all buzzer beaters to send the game into overtime. Last second splash on a catch and turn. That was a tough shot. The rookie, the 7'1" unicorn rookie. They talk so much about Wemby. Holmgren's one of those guys, man. That guy he's different at 7'1". They get it to overtime, they end up winning it. So 2-0 at Golden State. Moses Moody has been outstanding. Speaking of the Warriors, he's now consistently in the second unit. He's one of the top defensive guards in his minutes. When you look at efficiency and rating around the NBA, really good defensively. He's been efficient offensively. There's Hall of Famers ahead of him in that backcourt. In a lot of places, he'd be starting because of that defensive value and some of the other stuff he does. He would be a starter in a lot of NBA destinations, but in Golden State, second unit guy. So very proud of Isaiah Joe. Jalen and Moses Moody. Jalen Williams, second year pro for the Thunder, missed several games with a hamstring injury. They're still working him back in. He was a starter a lot last year. That was when Chet Holmgren was injured, and this is now his rookie season because he was drafted 2 drafts ago when Jalen went to Oklahoma City. He was the number 2 pick. Chet was. So Chet's the starter at the 5. They're still figuring out how they want to play Jalen. He's helped them already a couple of times. Not as many minutes in this series, in these 2 games against Golden State. When you look around the NBA, Bobby Portis, Milwaukee's on a run right now. Portis has got a hand in that, a big hand in that, in his 6-man duties. His offensive rating, just a couple of days ago, was top 10 in the NBA. Moses Moody's defensive rating was 8th, top 10 in the NBA. So pro Hogs get it done. Daniel Gafford, a staple in the starting lineup for a bad Washington Wizards team. Let's get that disclaimer out there. But his rim protection's been great. I think he's become a better rebounder, a more consistent rebounder. I think so defensively, not only the rebounding, but the blocking shots, top 5 in the NBA at over 2 a game. I think he stepped it up and helped them. And as bad as they are, he's been, I think, a bit of a bright spot in that. And he's had a double-double. He and Bobby Portis each have a double-double in points and rebounds already on the young season. I'm leaving some guys out. Oh, I'll get you a couple of things here that I think will matter as we move forward. Mentioned Anthony Black. Nick Smith Jr. Had 10 big fourth quarter minutes, the last 10 minutes of a tight game. He's really gotten spot duty and mop-up time and not played a whole lot. But against the Miami Heat, the defending Eastern Conference champs, a game that went to the wire, he had a big 3 in that, several nice defensive possessions, moved the ball well. He wasn't in a primary handler role, but had a really good run there. Against Milwaukee the other night, he blocked Bobby Portis' shot. It would have been a dunk or a layup. And he also rose up for a mid-range shot in secondary transition. Really nice, and that was over Bobby. So it was hog-on-hog crime a little bit there. The Bucks ended up winning by 31, and Bobby had a really good game overall. I thought that was interesting. But a couple of more rookies I want to get to real quick. Jordan Walsh, 3 games into the G League with Maine. We know the Boston Celtics are loaded for a title. They're a top 5 NBA team, so he doesn't have a role with a bunch of veteran guys that are playing for a title right now. But keep an eye on Jordan Walsh maybe getting his first NBA minutes. Little inside info. We'll see if something changes. Organizations change their mind. But I think he's going to be on the active roster Monday when Boston plays Charlotte, the Nick Smith Jr.'s team. And we might just see if there's enough opportunity with a score margin big enough and a lead where he gets his first NBA minutes. So he's already being called back, at least for a game. We'll see how it plays out. They could change their mind, but I think that's the plan. We'll see if Jordan Walsh gets in. Ricky Council, the 4th on a 2-way deal with the 76ers, doing some good things in the G League already. Yesterday had a 22-point game, shot the ball efficiently, and he's had a couple of games already where he's had 9 or 8 rebounds. So he's scoring, had his most efficient shooting game, and then he had one of his highlight dunks. Some people think he's the best dunker ever at Arkansas, but he's already starting to show those folks in the G League. He did it in Summer League. He did it in the preseason. Now he's doing it in the G League. He's got one of those highlight reel dunks. I kind of always keep an eye on Ricky Council, not just for the flash, but his progression as a player, because all of these guys want to get to a regular spot somewhere on a roster in the NBA.
Yeah, and we talked about this last week.
Guy doesn't have to worry about
Yeah,
it.
that guy's got one locked up right there. He's playing real well. And we talked about this last week, but these guys are past the point, right, of just being in the second unit. A lot of them are contributing in major ways, which all that does is push forward the momentum and the brand for Arkansas. But that's going to do it for this week's Hogs Hoop Report. Wow, can't talk right there. For Kevin McPherson, I'm Jacob Morris. More Pig Trail Show on the other side of the break.